Well, hello everyone. Some of you I haven't seen in a year. Some of you I saw at Christmas. But it's good to be back. Today I'm going to give you a short, sweet little demonstration on hydroponic gardening. First, does anyone have a garden in the ground? Growing a garden in the soil?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone that lives in a high-rise or a condo? No? Okay. Well, hopefully you'll learn a little bit about hydroponic gardening today. Hydroponic gardening is becoming increasingly popular. It's a method of growing plants, especially in city dwellings. You know, these people that live in these high rises, you know, they've got this small little patio, and this vertical grow system is perfect for that kind of living. But just because we don't live in a condo or a patio home, we can still utilize this system. You can have fresh vegetables and herbs all year long, even in the wintertime. Hydroponics is growing plants without soil. The nutrients are delivered to the plant in water. There's 6 types of hydroponic systems. The first one is called Nutrient Film Technique, NFT system. No grow medium is required. A channel is sloped and water and nutrients flow through it. Net pots for plants, which this is a net pot. It reminds me of your single-serve coffee. Net pots for plants with small root systems like lettuce, any kind of greens, basil, which of course y'all know is my favorite. And it works well for large plants as well with deep root systems or plants that grow in abundance of fruit like tomatoes. You see you have a catch container here. Your solution is in this container. This is like
Aquarium pump.
Aquarium pump, right? Or if you would, a pump that you use, an aerator when you go fishing. The PVC, which you could use like 4-inch with holes, you know, with the hole saw, cut the holes, put your net pots in it, and it's at a slight angle, so when the new water with the nutrients pumps in, then it flows down and pumps back out. They use an air stone to aerate the water. Plants need air to grow. In your garden, have you ever had a torrential rain and then water has sat on the ground for days? Maybe not here in Leon County because of the sandy soil, but from where I come from, you know, we had gumbo. So that was a big problem. The next system is called deep water culture, or DWC system. The roots are suspended in nutrient solution and air is provided directly to the roots with an air stone. See, they put an air stone in there and it bubbles and makes air. You have your net pots. Net pots with growing medium, because plants are sitting in nutrients and being supplied with unlimited oxygen, the plants grow really fast. The DWC system works great for large plants with big root systems that produce a lot of fruit, tomatoes. You could take a plastic tote, and not a clear one of the dark rubber kind of plastic totes, and you could drill holes and put your net pots in that, and then put your air stone in the bottom. This works great for big root systems that produce a lot of fruit, like tomatoes or peppers. They have a big root system. You know, when you plant a tomato plant in the soil, you lay it sideways and tip it up and you cover all that, so it creates a big root system for the plant. The next type is called wick hydroponics. It's a very simple system. So you have your solution container, you have your net pots. This kind of system requires no electricity, no pumps, or aerators. I've showed you this ball canning jar in the past. You can buy it. It comes free in a container, and it's an herb growing kit. This is a wick hydroponic system. The net pot has a wick that absorbs the water and the nutrients and brings it to the root of the plants. Well, you're probably going to ask, what do you put in the net cup? We'll get to that in a minute. This is a good example of the wick system. Herbs or small house plants do well in this type of system. Plants that don't require a lot of water. And it would also work for starting plants, rooting. Okay, we have the ebb and flow system. It's flood and drain system, and it works great for all types of plants. You have your catch container with your nutrient solution. You have your lid to the plastic tote, or you can use a plastic container and use PVC pipe with holes drilled in it. You have your water pump. It pumps the nutrients in. You have a drain where the water flows back out into the catch container, and it's just recycled. That's called ebb and flow. And like I said, it works great for all plants. Okay, now we're going to talk about a drip hydroponic system. Your solution container with your nutrient solution. You pump the water in. You have your net pots, and then it drains out. Nutrient solution is pumped through tubes directly to the base of the plants. With drip emitters, they drip at a controlled flow, and then the excess nutrients flow back into the reservoir. It goes in and it comes out. All plants can be grown with this method. There's a number of ways with the hydroponic system. What might work for someone may not work for someone else. So there's these different types of setups. I'm going to show you a setup here in just a minute.
I think there was a question, Kathy.
What was the difference between that one and the one before it? They look the same. That one and the one before it.
Because you know the little tubing, 1/4-inch tubing, and it's got little drip emitters, you know, like a good example would be like a water system in your soil garden. You know how you put it through your flower bed and it's got little drip emitters that deliver water to the plant at the base of the plant. This is the same type of thing. It's this 1/4-inch tubing, and it goes to each plant.
Okay,
And then
the other one just goes to the bottom of the
yes,
container.
goes to the
Got
bottom.
it.
Yes,
I guess I couldn't
yes.
see that from here.
So what happens is you can also set this up on a timer where it will come on and it'll run for however many seconds and then turn off. In hydroponics, once the solution drips all the way through, the system should be shut off. So the nutrient solution is pumped through the tubes directly to the base of the plants with drip emitters, and they drip at a controlled flow. Excess nutrients flow back into the reservoir. All plants can be grown with this method. Then you have aeroponics. That's a simple concept, but not the easiest method. Plants are suspended in the air and they're sprayed with nutrients. what makes this system difficult is making sure all the roots are sprayed. You know, because as your plant grows, you get this big mass of roots, and you have to make sure every single bit of the root is sprayed with the nutrient solution. So it's like a mist system that comes on and off. You know the mist systems you can buy at Home Depot, like to keep you cool on your patio, how it turns on and it mists for a little bit and then it shuts off? Well, if someone is sitting right here, they're going to get all that mist. If someone is kind of sitting over here, they may not get all that mist, just part of it. And your root system is going to grow out of this net cup. Your roots are going to grow out through this. So if you spray, your bunch of roots right here may get the spray, but some that may have grown out over here, out to the side here, may not get sprayed. So unless everything is sprayed, the plant is going to struggle. And then there's aquaponics that uses the fresh water from fish aquariums. Lots of people have these big fish tanks set up in these big tubs like a water trough, you know, and they grow fish like goldfish or some of the other fancy koi. And that water, the excretion from the fish lets off ammonia. So that water becomes your nutrient solution. It helps the plant to grow. Okay, now these net cups, they're filled with what we call a substrate. And there's different products. There's rock wool. It's made from molten rock and it's spun. And it's a hard substance. Then we have the Jiffy peat-based. This is for starting plants. You know, it's got this little peat plug. I know y'all have started seeds in these. You know, they have like a little greenhouse that goes on it and you water it and the seed germinates and then you plant it into the next size container. Well, they use these plugs in the hydroponic systems. There's a product called Costco Core, which is the fiber from a coconut shell. You know, it's ground up and they use that fiber. They're using jute. You know, people that do macrame, you know what jute is. It's a
Fiber.
board. Or you can use loose fill, like perlite or vermiculite. These substrates, there's no nutritional value for the plant. All this does is hold your plant up. They get no nutrients from any of this stuff. You can also use wood chips. You know, you buy wood chips at Home Depot. Or Michelle, where is she? She's over there. She's lucky to have a chipper and has beautiful wood chips. You could use that in these net pots. And basically, what these substrates do, like I said, is they support your plant. Okay, who remembers from the Master Gardener class? When we took the class, we learned about nutrients that is required by all plants. There's macronutrients and there's micronutrients. Does anybody remember what macronutrients are? Did y'all sleep in class? Sometimes I do. Anybody know what micronutrients are?
Probably something you can't see.
Okay, well, macro is just what it says. It's big. It's a lot. Micro is small. Your macronutrients are your nitrogen, your phosphorus, your potassium, your magnesium, and your sulfur. When you look at fertilizer, you see these numbers here. There's 3 numbers. Does anybody know what those numbers are?
Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium.
Okay. The first number, nitrogen, that's for everything that grows up. The middle number is for everything that grows down, below the ground, potatoes, carrots, beets. And the third number is all around. It covers all plants. They're all important. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, sulfur. These are water-soluble fertilizers right here. They're like Miracle-Gro. You mix them with water, they turn blue. Okay, magnesium plays a real important role in photosynthesis. That's what makes a plant green. Magnesium improves the flower blooms. It's very gentle on plants. It enhances the green color and makes for bushier plants. So it's real important. Okay, a secondary would be Epsom salt. It's made up of calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. I use Epsom salt for everything. If you look on the back of the bag, which I don't know if anyone's ever actually read the back of a bag of Epsom salt, but it has directions for use. Garden plants and shrubbery, and it tells you sprinkle 2 tablespoons around the base of each plant, use it as a food supplement, and it's got different rates for different vegetables. I use this in my soil garden, not just is it useful in hydroponics. It works well in your ground garden. I just go and I just throw it. If that bag happens to spill out at the base of one of your plants, you don't need to worry about it because it won't hurt anything. Sandy soil, which we all have, is most always deficient in magnesium. So this helps a lot with the growth of your plants. Okay, now we have micronutrients. These are very small. Iron, manganese, boron, molybdenum, copper, zinc, chlorine, and cobalt. And they're found in just trace amounts in your fertilizers. But they're all important for your plant's growth. They're only needed in just a small amount to supplement your plant. Most of the time, we just worry about the fertilizer and the 3, you know, 3 numbers here, and we never even think about those micronutrients. When you set up a hydroponic system, the pH of the water is very important. City water is clean because it's chlorinated and it's consistent. There's test kits that are available to test the pH of your water. Commercial hydroponic growers, they utilize a lab because they always have to be on top of the pH of the water that they're using with the nutrients to feed their plants. You know, us, we're just going to have a little small. For me, it's trial and error. I can't pay a lab to test my water. I should. You can do a water sample through the extension office. And this is just like doing a soil sample, but it tests everything in your water. How much calcium, what the pH is, what the magnesium is, what the sodium is, the potassium, the boron, and so forth. You can buy a test kit. It's basically the same thing you use for a swimming pool, and it will show the pH and the alkalinity, everything about the water. That's really helpful when you're doing hydroponics.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
With the city water, have you had any problems with having too much chlorine And does that affect the plants?
Well, if you draw your water and let it sit on the counter for 24 hours, the chlorine evaporates. And if you remember, chlorine is one of the micronutrients that plants need. So I'm sure there's probably some residual left in that water after the 24 hours. Not as much as when you first draw it. Yes,
I've
ma'am.
started to water my plants with my pond water. You know, I have about a third of an acre from the pond. And I don't know if it's because of the fish that are stopped in there, but my plants have been watered.
Well, fish fertilizer is an excellent hydroponic fertilizer. It smells to high heaven, it draws flies. I've used it in my garden, and for weeks, the flies, they come and they land on the building that's near my garden. They're everywhere. Okay, lighting. When you utilize a vertical grow stacks outside, you do not need to supplement the lighting. They receive all the light they need when they're grown outside. If you were to use this vertical stack system indoors through the winter, you would need grow lights. The indoor gardens, they do require grow lights, and there's different types of grow lights. If you go into Home Depot or Lowe's and go where all the light bulbs are, there's a lot of choices. There's red, there's blue, there's black. Different plants require different colors. And then when I try something, if it works, great. If it doesn't, I try something else. But I think there's an all-around light source. Michelle, do you know anything about the lighting? The grow bulbs?
Yeah, my husband does. I use him as my resource.
Okay, well, the black light, I think, is the kind of all-around light because it provides a little of the red and a little of the blue.
Some of the ones that I've gotten off of Amazon has a combination of red, blue, and white. And they actually have switches as to whether you get the red or the blue or both.
And different times of the year, the lighting outside is different. The first week, the week before June 21st, and the week after June 21st are the best growing weeks in your season. Your gardens grow the best the week before and the week after. And it has to do with the length of the daylight hours and the summer solstice. So, some plants require direct sunlight. In our area, we are always advised that if it says full sun, because our sun is so hot and intense, you can grow in partial shade. They really appreciate that little bit of shade in the afternoon. Just because they say full sun doesn't mean they can't grow in shade. And it's the same with the hydroponics when you leave it outside. Okay, let's talk about fertilizers and nutrients. When you mix your own, it's very cost effective. Or you can purchase a pre-mixed formula. You can go on Amazon, you can go in Home Depot, you can go in Lowe's in their garden centers, and there's just rows and rows of different fertilizers, different numbers for the nutrients that are in the solution. I mean, it can be mind-boggling. So the easiest thing, if you're going to mix your own, is 1 gallon of water. This is a tomato and vegetable water-soluble fertilizer. I'm alternating. I'm using this one day, I'm using this the next. This is an all-purpose. The numbers are a little different. 24, 8, 16. That means this has a lot of nitrogen. That's what gets your green, leafy growth. This is tomato and vegetable, and it's 18, 18, 21. So they're a little bit different. So I alternate. One day I use this one, the next day I use that. You use 2 teaspoons of the water-soluble fertilizer. 2 teaspoons is not very much. If you don't have a measuring spoon, you can use the cap off this gallon jug. This is about a teaspoon. So you use 2, just flat, not heaping, just 2 teaspoons of the fertilizer, and you use 1 teaspoon of Epsom salt. So as you can see, this 8-pound bag goes a long ways. The fertilizer goes a long ways. Well, you're probably thinking, well, in the soil, you don't fertilize every day to get your growth. Hydroponics, you do. The plant is supplied nutrients every single day. And then you can water 2 to 3 times per day. I think when we get to summer, when we have 100-degree days and 100-degree nights, then I'll need to water more than 2 to 3 times a day. This, and I'm not advertising any specific brand, but you can go on Amazon and you can purchase this setup. This setup is called Mr. Stacky on Amazon, but there's other products out there, and they refer to them as vertical grow towers. But this is my setup here. Okay, in these vertical grow containers, companion planting can also be practiced in a vertical grow system, like tomatoes, basil, parsley, sage, and thyme. They all grow good together. Companions, they like each other, so they do well together. Strawberries and sage grow well together. Okay, these are the materials that are required to erect the vertical tower. This right here says 1/4 to 1/2 inch of rebar. My husband informed me that was wrong. We did not use 1/2 inch, we used 5/8. And this is not a piece of rebar, this is just a piece of metal. He wasn't going to cut a big section of rebar just for me to bring. He said, just take this is 5/8. So you use 5/8 inch rebar, you use a 3/4 inch PVC pipe, which 6 weeks ago, this was nowhere to be found. And you determine how high you want your stack to be. Well, I'm short. Tom would want a taller because he's taller than I am. When you water, if it's too tall, the water runs down your arm. So mine is about 5 foot tall. And what we did was we cut the pipe right here. I took an old pot. We drilled a hole in the middle of the pot. We drove the rebar into the ground, and the rebar is about this tall, so it supports it. We cut the PVC so it was like this tall, so like about here from the ground. We took the planter, the pot, and we stuck it through the hole over the rebar. Then we took the PVC pipe and we took that piece and we put it in, and it goes through the pot to the ground. These splicers, or connectors, whatever you want to call them, and once again, these came from Florida because my brother and mother came to visit, and Home Depot and Lowe's didn't have any. We had broken pipes everywhere from the house to the barn. So he brought us these connectors. What you do is you just put it on your piece of PVC. And what happens, then you put your other piece on top of it. And what happens is, when you put your, see, this has got this, Mr. Stanley has a hole in the middle. And what happens is, when you put it in, it keeps the container from sliding down. you say you don't want to do this outside, or you don't want to do the PVC pipe and the rebar, you can also take a saucer, you know, for the bottom of the pot, and you can put this in a saucer. So you stack, they stack. They stack like this. They go together and they stack.
The system's designed not to be moved around a whole lot.
Well, you can.
I
I
mean-
mean, they come apart real simple.
You wouldn't move it every day, would you?
No, but, I mean, I brought it here.
If your wife told you to bring it in, would you?
My husband said, just take one. They only need to see one. I said, no, they need to see all of them. And you can buy these on Amazon, and I think for like 5 or 6 pieces, it's like $30 or $35. They're not that expensive. You can put a lot of plants in here.
Yeah.
Okay, and then this is my top. You can't see too.
Actually, we believe you. You can leave it on the counter.
Because I can't see. Anyway, you fill these up with the perlite or your other substrates. Could be the rock wool or the jute or the wood chips. And what it does is it supports your plants. I bought these strawberries at Bobo's, and the optimum thing would be to do roots, but these were already growing in growing medium. So I just stuck it in there and filled around it and below it with the perlite. Those roots are going to grow into the perlite. When this is on a pole, these actually turn. So if you want to turn it, like to get more sun on the back, you can turn it. It just spins around. And this is why it's called a vertical grow container. Okay, there's some advantages of hydroponic gardening. It uses less water than soil-based gardens. There's 6 containers. I water this twice a day, and I'm using maybe a half of a gallon of water. When you water, you start at the top, and you pour. And what I do is I take the cap from the water, put here, so as I spin it around, I know where I started. You know, when I get back to the cap, I know where I started. But you start at the top and you water. Well, what happens is there's holes here, and the water drips through and drips down, and then it continues and it drips down here to this one, and then it drips out to the bottom. The pot that I put on the bottom, I have regular soil in it. I put a pineapple top in it, so it will catch all that dripping, you know, that flows out of here. You water and pour water until water is pouring out of this one, and then that's all you need. So I spin it, you know, okay, so I'm going to start here, so I stick the cap here, and I turn it. I do this one. I turn it. I do this one. You know, but from the top. I start at the top. I water from the top. It uses less water than soil-based gardens. If you were out in your garden watering this, I guarantee you're going to give more than half a gallon of water to all those plants that you're growing in the ground. The environment is sterile because this perlite is sterile. So your plants don't get diseased like they do in the ground. The water that collects in the catch tank can be reused. Well, my catch tank is the pot with soil with a pineapple top. I'm not worried about recycling that water because I'm using it down below. So your water in your catch tank, when you use any of the other methods, I showed you all those containers that had the bottom catch tank. You can reuse it and just keep recycling it. Now, with this, since it was in dirt and not a plug, the water that comes out it's a little gray, it's a little dirty from the soil. But if you were to do this is a drip system now. Remember we talked about the drip systems? I just don't have the 1/4-inch tubing in the drip emitters. I'm just pouring it from the top and it's dripping down. It's the same concept. So the water that collects in the catch tank can be recycled and reused. There's no soil sample test required. When you plant your garden, Richard always suggests that you do a soil sample. When you do hydroponics, there's no need for a soil sample test. You should do a water sample though, to test what your water is. But now that can change if you're using well water, if you're using water from a rain barrel. One day that water may be very acidic, from acid rain. So it's good to do the water sample to see basically what your well water is, or your pond water. Like Kathleen said, she's using pond water. And I'm sure that pond water is real nutritious because it is, it comes down, it's the soil that's in that pond. And what is rain? Rain is just moisture that goes up and then comes back down. And for me, doing this is easier harvesting. There's no need for me to bend over. We were at the nursing home planting the walkways. And I told Susan, I said, I'm at a point in my life where if I get down, I don't know if I'm getting back up. So it makes harvesting your produce and your herbs easier because you don't have to bend over. There's no mulching or weeding. How many hours do you spend mulching or weeding? Probably a lot. There's no weeds. You can grow crops year-round. Plants grow up to 30% faster than plants growing in the soil. And the reason for that is because the plant doesn't have to send those roots out in search of nutrients. The nutrients are provided for it once, twice, maybe 3 times a day. The nutrients are ready available. So the product, your plant, will produce stronger crops and higher yields in small spaces. And in today's world, there's a big growing concern about leaving a footprint on our earth. Vertical grow systems take less land. As you can see, it only takes just a little small area to do this, whereas to grow this garden, to grow all these plants, I would say I would have to do an area from, say, about here to maybe over here. And that's a big area. Okay, now there's some disadvantages to hydroponic gardening. Elaborate systems, they're expensive. They're very expensive. These commercial growers that are doing hydroponics, their greenhouses are unbelievable. They're huge. It's constant monitoring is required. And you can face possible power outages, which I know all of you experienced that just about 6 weeks ago with our ice and snowstorm. So that would be a disadvantage unless you're on a solar powered system like Michelle, where you could keep everything up and running. Okay, this greenhouse belongs to our family members in Allen, Texas. It's called Friends Farm. They just built this greenhouse this past year. Next year, it's going to be a U-pick facility. He has 2 tanks that he constantly monitors. One's a 300-gallon, one's a 150-gallon, but he's finding that the 150 needs to go and he needs 2 300 gallons to keep everything watered and supply the nutrients to all of the strawberry plants. They gave me these stackers. I didn't have to buy them on Amazon. And they refer to them as vertical growers. There's a farm in Simonton that does hydroponic strawberries. Blessings Farm, have y'all ever heard of it? Maybe Melinda might have. Anyway, it's in Simonton and they have a commercial strawberry U-pick farm. They roll these sides up and down. Right now they're utilizing fans because it's starting to get too hot in the greenhouse, you know, with 100-degree days. He mixes his nutrients in his water, like I said, in a 300-gallon tank and a 150-gallon tank. And this is a drip irrigation system. You see the hoses? And he's got 2 in each pot, 1 on each side. That drip water. And it's on a timer, so it goes off 3 times a day. There's 100, well, he's got 11 rows, and each row there's 34 of these. So he's got 374 towers. Now, he just started using different nutrients. The nutrients that he's using is a byproduct from beer. There's a young couple in Blessings that they brew beer, and it's the waste from brewing the beer, the hops and molasses, whatever. You know, molasses is the best organic fertilizer you can find because it has your calcium and your magnesium. And it's also good at night when you wake up with leg cramps. You just get up, take a spoon of molasses, drink a glass of water, go back to bed, your legs, you know, your cramps in your legs stop. And it's because of the calcium. All plants need calcium and magnesium. As you can see, it's, you know, rows. I had a heyday. It was so much fun. My grandkids and I, we picked berries for like 30 minutes. I put 23 quarts of strawberries in my freezer. I said, oh, that's enough. I'm tired. That's enough. That's enough. And she kept saying, no, pick more, pick more. Here I am picking. It was cold that day.
Now, where is this place?
This is in Alvin.
Now.
And next year they're going to be open to the public for a youth picnic. But they're putting down rubber conveyor belt mats down these aisles. You know, they put the black plastic down and now they're going to put the mats on there so it's a clean walkway. And there's some of their berries. And here's new growth. I don't have any new growth. Well, yeah, I do right here. Here's some new growth.
How long will a strawberry plant like that do? Before you have to
Well,
replace it?
the original plant no longer produces after this year's cycle, but it throws off babies. The babies that it throws off, that's what produces your berries the next year. So actually, this thing is going to continue to produce as long as he's got new growth. Oh, your Epsom salt also deters bulbs. Mr. Bradley, you do moles and gophers. I don't know if bowls are the same thing. I don't think they are. But Epsom salt deters
Gophers, what about them?
bowls. Oh, L-E-S. Bowls.
Bowls, that's kind of like bowls, I think.
Yeah, but your Epsom salt will help deter those.
You don't want any of them.
No, I know.
The bowls are higher up.
Okay, as you see
Gophers are
here,
deeper.
Probably this part of the country.
this handout, this is a good little project for J&G. All you need is a plastic container with a lid. You cut a slit in the top of the container, and you put a hole that a straw will fit through. You fill it up with your solution. You take a large cotton ball and you saturate it in your solution, and you push it through this little hole like this. It acts like a wick. And then your child every day can blow into it to aerate it, to create the air that the plant needs to grow.
As long as they grow.
Micronutrients, they grow really fast. Micronutrients are the perfect thing to grow in one of these containers. The handout says, I believe, lettuce. Because lettuce does not require, lettuce actually needs sunlight to germinate. So when you put your lettuce seeds out there, you don't need to cover them up. Just kind of pat it down, and they'll germinate. They need the sunlight to germinate. So this system works really well. I know y'all have used cotton balls before, and when they get wet, they tend to stick to your hands, you know? So if this is wet, you can put a couple little seeds on there, and kind of pull it up, you know, make it real thin and put it over the seed. The seed will germinate. And this basically is what a hydroponic system is. Simple. The kids love it. You can watch your lettuce grow. I mean, you could even do bigger square containers, you know, like through the wintertime in your windowsill, and have some fresh leaf lettuce. These plants, when you put your plug in here and you fill it up with your perlite, you fill this up to about here with your nutrient water, and as it goes down, you know, it's sucking up through the wick. My suggestion would be, now I started these before the snow and ice. Well, it's a good thing I did. I had 4 jars of this because my rosemary, I lost it. So luckily I had new sprigs to put out in the garden. But I started these for Noveline to trade out for some elderberry. I wasn't at the last meeting, and she brought her part of the trade, and I wasn't there. And I was hoping she would be here today so I could give her these. Well, as you can see, I'm not a very good gardener. You see how green the jar is? The sunlight grows algae. I know, when I fill this up, I could rinse it out and wash it out, but, you know, I've got a million other things going. It was, you know, hard cleaning up from the snow and ice in my yard, so much dead stuff, that I just neglected this. My suggestion is, if you're going to use these ball jars, take an old man's sock, a dark black or brown sock, cut it out, slip it up over this, and then that way light can't penetrate it, and you won't get this algae.
That ain't an old man?
Man's sock is is bigger than a woman's size.
You're wearing the dark, you're wearing the dark socks.
Fit better over your socks.
Good thing you're wearing white ones, Tom.
That's what I'm gonna do when I do this. I'm
Couldn't
gonna
you
go
paint the
to
jar?
store and take some of these old socks. But that way the white doesn't. Well, yes, you could. You can paint these, spray paint this black. And I have spray painted some things with white paint. It looks just like milk glass. It's lovely. Anyway, so you could spray this with black spray paint if you really wanted.
I
And
also,
that'll keep it from growing. Okay, you see here? Y'all can come up here and look at these if you like. I have, this is my top stack. I have a tomato plant, and I have a pepper plant. This is a test. You can take a piece of pool noodle, put it down in there, and it supports your plant. See how good it makes a collar. Just split it down the middle, put it around your plant. It makes really good support. I think I'm even going to try it in my regular soil garden, using a pool noodles to support my plants. And I've got some Thai basil in here, and I have some basil that I did from seed in the Jiffy plugs. I even have some onion balls in here. And they're starting to peek out. Make a mess of everything. I have to get it on.
Kathy, when you move those in there, do you buy the plant from Bobo's? Do you have to remove the soil off? of it?
Well, I did just a little bit, rinsed it, but you have to be careful because if you do that, then you could damage the roots. I just stuck it in there and I poured perlite in the bottom, stuck that in there, and then filled it up around it with perlite. I thought I had a spot in here to put this, but I guess I don't. Just going to show you how to do it. Just take it out of here and dig your little hole away from the perlite and just cram it down in there. I'm real happy with how these look, these tomatoes and these peppers. Okay, let's see what I've got to tell you.
There's not a test.
Okay, well, Epsom salt is simple and it's cheap. Most households have it for their aches and pains.
I don't recommend the
It's
flavor.
the most perfect nutrient for gardens and plants. It also increases seed germination when you plant seed. Improves the uptake of other nutrients like your nitrogen, and it enhances growth and overall plant health. And like I said, if you spill bags, you don't have to worry about it hurting the plant, whereas if you spill commercial fertilizer, you'd have to worry about that plant being burned. Epsom salt does not burn plants. The net pots you can buy on Amazon, and you can get, I think it was like 25 for like $9.99. They're inexpensive. To start up a system, you're going to spend maybe $50, but you'll have it. Well, does anybody have any questions? Any questions?
How much weight?
Yes, ma'am.
on where you have your, two pieces, yes, that. Can you go ahead and do them a little bit longer so that the plants are a little further up?
Well, mine is like this tall, my piece of PVC that I started with, because I'm short. And when I water from the top, I don't want that water running down my arm.
Right.
You You can make it any height you
Okay,
want.
because I'm
You can
thinking
make it
if it's,
shorter, you can make it taller.
I'm thinking if it's something that grows over, that gives it more room, that it's not growing over the ones below them.
Now, here's a good idea. If you did tomato plants and say just had 2 containers, you can put them down lower. You can put these garden stakes in the ground and you can secure your tomato plant to the stick. Or you can use a string, whatever works best for you. Well, I hope y'all take away something from this.
This is very good.
I've thought about hydroponics for a lot of years.
Everyone please stay for a minute.
I've thought about hydroponics for a lot of years, and I finally decided I was gonna jump into it and see. I mean, I'm not doing it on a big scale like our family is, but this is kind of fun.